Don't lie to me. The words arrived before Lindau could process them. Kang Min-seok stood 3 feet away, his body perfectly still in the way of men who trained themselves to be dangerous. His expression, blank, polished, corporate, had shattered. In its place was something raw. She was invisible to him. Had been invisible for 8 months. Until now. His eyes locked on the bandage covering half her left cheekbone. Medical-grade gauze over bruising that extended beneath cheap foundation. Her wrist, where she'd instinctively pulled her sleeve down, showed fingerprint marks in shades of purple and sickly yellow. Who touched you? Not a question. A death sentence waiting for a name. Kang Min-seok's voice was soft, the kind of soft that made the air vibrate with threat. The kind of soft that came right before men disappeared from the earth. She knew this about him without knowing anything else. Months of cleaning his penthouse had taught her that violence clung to him like cologne. It lingered in rooms after he left. It whispered beneath every measured gesture, every precisely chosen word. I fell, Lindau said. The lie tasted like copper. Clumsy. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. She had 3 more houses to clean before 6 p.m., and Zara was waiting at home. Zara, who was 7 years old and had outgrown her school shoes 2 months ago. Zara, whose new shoes cost money Lindau didn't have yet. Zara, who'd already learned to eat smaller portions at dinner so her mother could have enough. Every shift mattered. Every dollar mattered. Bruises could wait. His jaw tightened. For 5 long seconds he didn't move. Then he stepped closer. Not aggressive, measured, the way a predator approaches trapped prey, and lifted his hand toward her face. She flinched. The movement was automatic, protective. Her body remembered what her mind tried to forget. This was the part that always came next. The moment when a man's touch turned into pain. But he stopped, hands suspended in the space between them, waiting for permission that she didn't know how to give. I'm not going to hurt you, he said quietly. Look at me. She looked. His eyes were dark enough to be black in certain light. But in the afternoon sun streaming through the penthouse windows, the kind of windows that framed soul like a painting only he could afford to own, they were something else. Obsidian. Obsessed. Someone put their hands on you, he continued. And you came to work today like it didn't happen. Like you're invisible. And you have somewhere to be. Someone waiting for you. Her breath caught. How did he? You keep checking the time, he said. Looking at your phone. You have a 5 p.m. appointment. You always do on Thursdays. You rush through this apartment faster on Thursdays than any other day. I have to, she started. Pick up your daughter, he finished. From after-school care. Which closes at 6, and if you're late, there's an additional charge. Which you can't afford. The fact that he knew this, the precision of it, the invasion of it, made her throat close. Someone put their hands on you, he continued. And you're still here. You're still working. Because you have a child depending on you. And that. His voice dropped to something almost reverent. That makes you the strongest person I've ever encountered. And in that moment, Lindau understood something that terrified her. A predator had noticed her. And being noticed by predators is how prey becomes collateral. But worse, he'd noticed the one thing she was trying desperately to protect, Zara. The penthouse existed in silence. Not peace. Silence. The kind that swallowed sound and replaced it with the weight of expensive things. Leather that cost more than most people's annual salary. Marble that had been quarried from mountains centuries ago. Art that nobody looked at because looking at beauty this profound felt like trespassing. Lindau had cleaned this space twice a week for 8 months. She knew the way desks settled on the bookshelf. Leather-bound novels in Korean and English, mostly untouched. She knew the exact temperature at which Kang Min-seok preferred the penthouse windows kept slightly open. 3 inches, no more, no less, a detail she deduced through trial and error. She knew the brands of tea he drank at 6 a.m. and the way his espresso cup always sat facing the floor-to-ceiling windows, pointing toward Seoul like a compass. What she didn't know, couldn't have known, was that he'd been watching her watch his space. He noticed her on day 1. Not in the way men usually notice women, not attraction, not interest. Something else. Something about the way she moved through his penthouse like she was trying not to disturb the air. Like she'd learned that taking up space was dangerous. He recognized that movement. He'd seen it in people who'd been trained by violence to be small. By week 2, he was rearranging his schedule to be home when she cleaned. By month 3, he knew her routine better than she did. The way she hummed old soul songs when she thought no one was listening, songs about Louisiana, about going home, about grandmothers who taught their daughters to be strong. The way she reorganized his books by color instead of alphabetically because she thought it looked better. It did. The way she left the windows open exactly 3 inches because she figured out he liked fresh air but hated wind. She thought she was invisible. She had no idea she was the only real thing in his apartment. Kang Min-seok had built his empire on control, on precision, on never letting anything matter enough to become a weakness. But somewhere in those 8 months, Lin-dao had slipped past every defense he'd constructed. He didn't know what to do with that. So he did what he always did. He gathered information. Her file arrived on his desk within 48 hours of him asking for it. Lin-dao Dlamini, originally from Johannesburg, South Africa, immigrated to Seoul 3 years ago on a work visa. Single mother. Daughter named Zara, 7 years old, reading at a 3rd grade level. For jobs. His penthouse twice a week, 3 other homes on rotating days. Annual income barely above poverty line. No family in Korea. No support system except a sister back in South Africa who sent money when she could. The file also included medical records. A visit to an emergency room 6 weeks ago. Stitches on her arm. Story was fell while cleaning. The doctor had noted the pattern of injuries, but Lin-dao had signed the paperwork and left before questions could be asked. And an ex-partner. Marcus Webb. American. Construction worker. History of domestic violence charges in 3 countries, all dropped or settled. Currently in Seoul. Currently, according to surveillance, visiting Lin-dao's apartment building at irregular intervals. His face showed up on building cameras. His hand was visible in security footage, grabbing her arm outside the building. The final page of the file made Kang Min-seok's hands go white-knuckled. A photograph. Lin-dao's 7-year-old daughter Zara. Walking to school alone. Walking home alone. Walking through neighborhoods that made even the surveillance team nervous. A child. Unprotected. Vulnerable. Kang Min-seok read the file and felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. The desire to destroy someone personally. He waited. Watched. Gathered more information. And then the bandage appeared on Lin-dao's face. And waiting stopped being an option. After that afternoon, the bandage changed everything. Kang Min-seok began appearing during her cleaning shifts. The first time she assumed it was coincidence. The second time, she noticed him watching her from the kitchen while she dusted the living room. The third time he was waiting with tea. "Sit," he said simply. "Mr. Kang, I have 3 more homes today. Sit." Not a request. With him there were no requests. Just statements of reality that he'd decided would be true. Lin-dao had learned this language by working for him. The language of men accustomed to power was a language of imperatives disguised as civility. She sat on the edge of his pristine white sofa, wrong in every way. Her discount store uniform against designer fabric. Her chapped hands from cleaning products resting on cushions that cost more than her monthly rent. Her second-hand shoes tucked beneath furniture that belonged in museums. He placed a cup in front of her. Not the regular tea. The expensive kind. The baricha he kept for special occasions. Expensive meant something different in his world. It meant deliberate. Intentional. Special. "Tell me about the bandage," he said, settling into the chair across from her. Not beside her. He was careful about distance. Careful about not making her more afraid. "It's nothing, sir. Just Lin-dao." Her name in his mouth sounded like something precious. He'd never used her name before. In 8 months it had always been you or nothing at all. Now it arrived like a confession. "In 8 months you've arranged my books by color instead of alphabetically. You leave the windows at exactly 3 inches because you figured out I like fresh air but hate wind. You hum while you work. Old soul songs. Your grandmother's favorites, I think, because sometimes you sing words about going home to Louisiana." Her breath caught. Her throat tightened. She thought herself invisible. "You bring cheap bodega flowers," he continued, "and arrange them in my kitchen when you think I won't see. You fold the towels in thirds instead of halves because you think it looks neater. You adjust the angle of the coffee cup so it faces the window. You notice everything in my space, Lindao. Did you think I wouldn't notice you? She couldn't speak. The room felt too small. The air felt too thin. You're not invisible to me, he said quietly. You've never been invisible to me. So please don't lie. Who hurt you? The silence that followed was the kind that could swallow a person whole. Lindai realized she was trembling. His name is Marcus, she said finally. Zara's father. He left when I was pregnant. Came back 2 weeks ago demanding money. Said I owed him for his investment in a kid he never wanted. And when you refused? He got angry. She pulled her sleeve up, showing the fingerprint bruises. This is his left hand. He's right-handed, so he was trying to— it was just a grab just to intimidate. He didn't actually. He bruised you, Kang Min-seok interrupted quietly. And your face. The bandage. He backhanded me when I tried to close the door. Split my cheek on the doorframe. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle working beneath his skin. His hands, resting on the arms of his chair, had gone white-knuckled. And you came to work, he said. To my penthouse. Where you thought I wouldn't notice. Where you thought you could hide. I needed the money. Her voice cracked. Zara needs. She stopped, but the words were already out there. Zara needs new shoes. Zara needs food. Zara needs a mother who stays employed. He split my lip. I covered it with makeup. I came to work because I can't afford not to. Because of Zara, he said. Not a question. Always because of Zara, Lindai whispered. I know what Zara needs. His voice had changed. Become something harder. Something dangerous. 2nd grade reading level, but she tests at 3rd grade. Favorite book is Charlotte's Web. She wants to be a veterinarian. She needs new school shoes by next month. The ones she has are 2 sizes too small, but she hasn't told you because she knows money is tight. Your rent is due in 8 days. You've been skipping meals so she can eat better. Lindai's heart seized. How do you? Because I had you investigated the moment you walked into my life arranging flowers, he said simply. Not apologetic. Not even trying to soften it. I have people who bring me information about things that matter to me. You matter to me. Your daughter matters to me. That's not how this works. You don't just. Every night at 6 p.m., you pick up your daughter from after-school care, he continued like she hadn't spoken. You bring her home to an apartment the size of this kitchen. You make her dinner from things you buy at the discount market. You help her with homework even though you're so tired you can barely keep your eyes open. And then you put her to bed and clean the houses you missed time on because you had to be a mother first. He stood, crossed to her, and crouched in front of her chair so their eyes were level. I've spent 15 years building an empire, he said. And it's empty. Every single thing I own is empty. But you've spent 7 years raising a brilliant child with nothing. And she's not empty. She's full of light and hope and strength because you taught her that. You taught her to survive. You taught her to matter. Tears spilled down Lindai's cheeks. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to stop being invisible, he said. I want you to stop sacrificing yourself like your pain doesn't matter. I want you to let someone help you. Why? You don't even know me. I know you, he said. I know everything that matters. I know you have a daughter who's waiting for you at 6 p.m. I know you skip meals so she can eat. I know you work yourself into exhaustion so she can have a future. I know you think you're not worth protecting because you're too busy protecting her. He reached out and gently touched her face, the unmarked side, careful not to touch the bandage. Marcus will never touch you again, he said. I'm going to make sure of that. And neither will anyone else. And you and Zara. You're going to stop being invisible. By the next morning, Marcus Webb was no longer a problem. Lindai didn't know this yet. What she knew was that Kang Min-seok had called her that evening and told her to pack a bag. She was moving to an apartment building he owned, secure, private, monitored. When she tried to protest, he'd simply said, "It's not a discussion." She'd packed. She always did what he asked her to do now. The new apartment was obscene. Luxury in every detail, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Gangnam, furniture that cost more than her yearly salary, A kitchen she was almost afraid to use because everything looked too expensive to actually function. 2 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms. A living room larger than her entire previous apartment. And security. Men in the lobby who nodded at her when she entered. Cameras in the hallways. A building manager who called her Miss Dlamini, with genuine respect because she was now associated with Kang Min-seok's name. It was another cage. Just a prettier one. On her first night in the apartment, Lindau tucked Zara into bed in a room with windows overlooking Seoul. The child had run through the space like a wild thing, touching everything, unable to believe the space was real. "Mama, is this really ours?" Zara had asked, her voice small. "For now, baby. For now." Now, as Lindau pulled the blanket up to her chin, Zara reached out and grabbed her hand. "Mama? Why aren't you smiling?" Lindau's throat tightened. She was smiling. She was smiling so hard her face hurt. She was smiling because her daughter was safe. She was smiling because there was food in the refrigerator. Real food, not discount market food. She was smiling because for the first time in 3 years, she'd had enough money to pay rent without knowing if she could also pay for groceries. "I am smiling, baby," she whispered. "No," Zara said seriously. Her 7-year-old eyes were too old. "You smile with your mouth. But you don't smile with your eyes. You haven't smiled with your eyes since before Daddy came back." Lindau sat down on the edge of the bed and pulled her daughter into her arms. This was the cost of single motherhood. This was what her sacrifice looked like through a child's eyes. A mother who smiled with her mouth but not her heart. "I'm going to smile with my eyes again," she promised. "I promise you that." "Mr. Kang makes you smile," Zara said into her shoulder. "I saw you on the phone with him yesterday. You were smiling with your eyes." Lindau didn't know what to say to that. So she held her daughter and wondered what it meant that a dangerous man was making her smile in ways she'd thought were gone forever. The next day, Kang Min-seok called and invited them to dinner. 3 days after moving into the apartment, Lindau received an invitation. Not a request. Kang Min-seok didn't make requests. A statement. "Dinner tonight. 7 p.m. My restaurant in Gangnam. Bring Zara." She almost said no. Almost refused because bringing her daughter into his world felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. But Zara had been asking questions. "Who's Mr. Kang? Why did we move? Why do you smile when you look at your phone now?" So she said yes. Hanul occupied a corner of Gangnam that whispered old money and older secrets. Lindau stood outside with Zara, both wearing their Sunday best, which still looked shabby against the restaurant's elegant facade. Zara's dress was a hand-me-down that Lindau had carefully mended. Her own dress was 3 years old and showed it. "Mama, are you sure we're allowed?" Zara tugged at her collar. "We were invited, baby." Lindau squeezed her daughter's hand. "We belong here tonight." The door opened before they could knock. A hostess in a traditional hanbok bowed. "Iozio oseo. Miss Dlamini Sajangnam is waiting." They were led through the main dining room, all subtle lighting and wealthy patrons, to a private room in the back. Kang Min-seok stood when they entered and Lindau's breath caught. He wore black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing muscled forearms and the edge of a tattoo she'd never seen before. Casual elegance that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But what struck her wasn't the clothes, it was his expression. Nervous. Actually nervous. Like this dinner mattered in ways that business negotiations never did. "Lindau." His eyes swept over her, warm and appreciative. "You look beautiful." She flushed, suddenly conscious of her cheap dress. "I look beautiful," he repeated firmly. Then he crouched to Zara's level. Actually crouched, this powerful man, getting down to meet a 7-year-old's eyes. "And you must be Zara. Your mom talks about you all the time." Zara's eyes went wide. "She does. Constantly. She says you're the smartest girl in your grade." "First grade," Zara corrected solemnly. "But I read at a 3rd grade level." Kang Min-seok's smile was genuine, not the controlled expression he wore for business, but something real. "Then you and I will get along perfectly. Collect books. Do you like books?" Zara nodded enthusiastically. "I love books. Mama says books are how you travel when you can't afford plane tickets." Something flickered in his eyes. He glanced up at Lindau with an expression that made her heart squeeze. Your mom is very wise, he said softly. Let's get you both some food. Dinner was a revelation. Course after course of Korean dishes Lindau had never tried, each explained patiently by Kang Min-seok. He taught Zara how to use chopsticks, laughing when she dropped food repeatedly. He told stories about growing up in Seoul, about his grandmother who taught him to appreciate good food and strong women, about the time he tried to cook kimchi jjigae as a teenager and nearly burned down the kitchen. Zara giggled. Actually giggled. And Lindau watched this dangerous man become gentle, become soft, become human in ways she hadn't imagined possible. My grandmother would have liked you, he said to Lindau over tea, while Zara explored the dessert menu with wide eyes. She always said the strongest people are the ones who protect others before themselves. I'm not that strong, Lindau said quietly. You're raising a brilliant daughter alone. You work 4 jobs to survive. You came to my penthouse with a split cheek and fingerprint bruises, and tried to clean my apartment because your daughter needed shoes. His eyes held hers. Lindau, you're the strongest person I've ever met. Zara excused herself to the bathroom, leaving them alone for the first time all evening. The air shifted immediately, tension crackling like static. Thank you, Lindau said softly. For this. For being kind to her. I'm not being kind. I'm being honest. He leaned forward, and his hand found hers across the table. She's incredible because you're incredible. Minj. I meant what I said about wanting to know you, he continued, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. About you mattering to me. I know this is fast. I know our worlds don't make sense together. But Lindau, I haven't felt this alive in years. She should pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over, lacing their fingers together. I'm scared. Of me. Of what you make me feel. Of what happens when reality crashes back in. Of what it means that you're looking at my daughter like she's precious to you. She met his eyes. You're Kang Min-seok. I've heard the whispers. I know what you are. What if you decide we're not worth the trouble? What if you disappear? What if Zara gets attached and then? Then nothing, he said firmly. Because I won't disappear. Lindau, I know what it's like to lose people. I know what it's like to hold something precious and then have it ripped away. I'm not going to do that to you or Zara. Not ever. Zara burst back in, shattering the moment. But Kang Min-seok didn't let go of Lindau's hand. And when Zara noticed their intertwined fingers, she grinned like she discovered the best secret in the world. The drive home was in Kang Min-seok's car, a sleek black Mercedes driven by a silent bodyguard. Zara fell asleep against Lindau's shoulder, full and happy for the first time in months. She likes you, Lindau murmured. Good. Kang Min-seok shifted closer in the back seat. Because I plan on being around a lot more. If you'll let me. This is crazy. Maybe. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing over where the bandage had been. The bruise was fading now, yellow-green instead of purple. But I'm done pretending I don't want this. Want you. Want both of you. The car stopped outside her new apartment building. He helped her extract sleepy Zara, then walked them to the door despite her protests. Tomorrow, he said at her doorway. Come to the penthouse. Not to work. To see me. Minj. He kissed her. Soft and searching, a question more than a demand. Lindau's free hand fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed warnings. He tasted like possibility and danger. Like everything she'd trained herself not to want. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. Tomorrow, he repeated. Tomorrow, she agreed. And watched him disappear into the night, taking her common sense with him. You've made it this far. You've watched Lindau try to be invisible for her daughter. You've seen her become visible. Now Zara knows her mother is smiling with her eyes again. Hit that subscribe button. Not for me. For Lindau. For Zara. For every single mom who's been invisible while protecting her child. Now let's continue. Tomorrow came with complications. There was a security threat. Someone had been photographing Lindau's apartment building, and Kang Min-seok's people couldn't identify them. Until the threat was assessed, he wanted her in the penthouse. With him. With Zara. You have a guest room, she said when he proposed it. I have 3 guest rooms, he agreed. One for you. One for Zara. One for when you need space. She picked the one farthest from his bedroom, put Zara to bed in a room with windows overlooking Seoul, the city glittering like a promise. Zara fell asleep asking questions. Is Mr. Kang your boyfriend, Mama? Can he be my daddy? Questions Lindau couldn't answer because she didn't know the answers herself. Then she sat on the edge of her own bed in this ridiculous penthouse and tried to process how her life had changed in less than 2 weeks. At 2 a.m. she couldn't sleep. She padded to the kitchen for water and found Kang Min-seok already there, standing at the window with a glass of whiskey. He turned when he heard her. In the darkness, wearing only sleep pants, he looked different. Younger. More vulnerable. The tattoos she'd glimpsed at dinner covered more of his body than she'd realized. Intricate designs that told stories she didn't yet know how to read. Can't sleep either, he asked. Too much to think about. He poured her water without being asked, then leaned against the counter. I'm sorry. For all of this. For disrupting your life. For moving so fast. You didn't disrupt it, Lindau said slowly. You invaded it. There's a difference. Is there? Disruption is accidental. Invasion is deliberate. She took the water glass. You knew exactly what you were doing when you told me to pack that bag. You knew about Zara. You knew about the shoes. You knew everything. Yes. No apology. Just acknowledgement. I saw an opportunity to keep you safe and I took it. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to understand that you can't just collect people. I'm not a thing you acquire. And Zara, her voice hardened. My daughter is off limits. If this doesn't work out, if you leave, I'm not going to leave. You can't promise that. Watch me, he said. His voice turned fierce, protective. Lindau, I know what I am. I know I'm dangerous. I know I have a world that's violent and complicated and you and Zara shouldn't have to be part of it. But I also know that watching you every day for 8 months taught me something. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of being empty. And I'm not willing to go back to that. Not for anything. Not for anyone. He turned to face her fully. My wife said something similar once, he said quietly. Before she died. Lindau went still. I didn't know you were married. I was. A long time ago. Her name was Soo-yeon. He turned back to the window. She died because of what I am. Because someone wanted to hurt me, and she was easier to reach. Minj. I had a daughter too. Minju. She was 5. His voice had gone flat. Empty. She died in the same attack. Collateral damage. That's what the police report called her. Collateral damage. Lindau set down her water glass and crossed to him. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know if there were words for this kind of grief. So she did what he'd done for her on the kitchen floor. She stood beside him in silence and let him feel less alone. That's why I'm like this with you, he continued after a long moment. That's why I need to know you're safe. That's why Zara matters to me. 'Cause once I failed. Once I wasn't strong enough or fast enough or smart enough to protect the people I loved. And I can't, his voice cracked. I can't fail again. Lindau reached for him, turned him to face her. And then she did something she hadn't done with anyone since Marcus first showed her what men could become. She initiated contact. She pulled him down and kissed him. Not soft. Not questioning. Claiming. Like she was trying to absorb some of his pain or at least share it. When they broke apart, his eyes were wet. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Not for, I don't want to, just stay. Just be here. I don't want to be alone with this anymore. So she stayed. They lay on his bed, fully clothed, not touching except for their hands intertwined between them, and she listened to him breathe until he finally fell asleep. In the morning, Zara found them like that and crawled into the bed between them like it was the most natural thing in the world. And Lindau realized the terrible truth. She wasn't just falling for Kang Min-seok. She was already gone. The fragile peace shattered with a single phone call. Kang Min-seok's second-in-command, Jae-won, arrived at the penthouse with news that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. One of their distribution centers had been hit. 5 men dead. Products seized. And the calling card left at the scene belonged to Jin Hwan Park, the head of the Busan organization. Kang Min-seok's primary rival in South Korea's criminal underworld. It's a provocation, Jae-won said in rapid Korean. He's testing our response time. Kang Min-seok responded in Korean as well, his voice sharp and commanding, a different man entirely from the one who'd held Lindao's hand through the night. This was the crime boss, the predator, the version of him that had built an empire through violence. After Jae-won left, Lindao watched him transform. He made phone calls, short-clipped, authoritative. He changed into a different suit, darker, more severe. His posture shifted. His expression hardened. The gentle man who'd crouched to meet Zara's eyes disappeared, replaced by someone who looked capable of ordering deaths without flinching. I have to go, he said finally. There's a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where people have already died. And more will die if I don't respond correctly. He kissed her forehead, brief, distracted, and was gone. Over the next 3 days, Lindai watched the news and learned to read between the lines. A firebombing in Busan. 8 casualties. 3 establishments destroyed. A retaliatory strike in Gangnam. A casino owned by Kang Min-seok's organization. Shot up in broad daylight. Counterstrikes. Body counts. Territory disputes disguised as business conflicts. The war was escalating, and Lindai was watching it happen from inside the eye of the storm. Zara asked questions she didn't know how to answer. Why was Mr. Kang so angry? Why did he have a gun in the bathroom? Why was Mama scared? Kang Min-seok returned to the penthouse less and less frequently. When he did appear, he was different. Colder. More distant. His clothes sometimes smelled like gunpowder. His knuckles were rapped more often than not. His eyes had gone flat. The look of someone who'd been making decisions that cost lives. One night, 2 weeks into the conflict, he came home at 3 a.m. Lindai was waiting. She couldn't sleep when he was out there. Couldn't stop imagining the worst. Zara had cried herself to sleep asking if Mr. Kang was coming back. He stood in the doorway and looked at her like he'd forgotten she existed. Minj. I shouldn't be here, he said. His voice was hoarse. You shouldn't see me like this. Like what? Like what I actually am. He stepped into the light and she saw it. Blood on his collar. Not his blood. He moved too easily for it to be his. Someone else's blood. Someone he'd been close to when they died. Her stomach turned, but she didn't run. And behind her closed bedroom door, Zara slept, trusting that her mother's presence meant safety. She reached for his hand instead. Come here, she said. He didn't move. Lindao, I know what you just did. Come here anyway. She led him to the bathroom. She ran warm water. She cleaned the blood from his neck with a washcloth while he stood there, silent, letting her tend to him. It was grotesque and intimate in equal measure. It was her understanding exactly what she was accepting when she accepted him. You're not afraid of me, he said finally. It wasn't a question. I'm terrified of you, she corrected. But I'm more afraid of what happens to you if no one's here when you come home. Of what you become if there's no one to remind you that you're human. Something broke in his expression. He pulled her against him and held on like she was the only solid thing in a world that was crumbling. This is because of me, she whispered against his chest. The war started because of me. Because I matter to you. No. His arms tightened. It started because Jin Hwan saw an opportunity. Because he's been probing for weakness for years, and he thought you were it. Wasn't I? Kang Min-seok pulled back to look at her. You're not my weakness, Lindai. You and Zara. You're the only things that make any of this worth fighting for. The breaking point came on night 17. Lindai had spent the day watching news reports. Another strike. Another retaliation. The body count had reached double digits. Men she'd never met. Dying in a war that had started because a woman with a bandage on her face had answered a question honestly. And because that woman had a daughter waiting at home. And because a man with a dead child and a broken heart decided that protecting them was worth burning down soul. When Kang Min-seok returned that night, she was waiting. Not in the bedroom. In the living room. Standing. With Zara asleep behind her closed door. Stop, she said. He paused in the doorway. Stop what? The war. The killing. All of it. Stop. I can't stop, Lindai. Why not? She was shaking, fury and horror and guilt all tangled together. Why can't you just let him have the territory? Why does this have to end in apocalypse? Because he didn't just want territory. Kang Min-seok's voice was ice. He wanted to prove that I could be destabilized. That I could be made weak through you. If I back down now, every rival I have will see it. They'll all come for you. For Zara. The war won't end, it will multiply. But people are dying. Lindao grabbed his arm. Do you understand that? People are dying because you decided a woman with a bandage on her face was worth starting a war over. Yes. The word landed between them like a bomb. Yes, he repeated. And I would do it again. I would burn down the entire city if it meant keeping you and Zara safe. I would watch every one of my enemies bleed out in front of me if it meant your daughter could sleep without fear. That's what I am, Lindao. That's what loving you and her means. She pulled away from him. That's not love. That's possession. That's making our lives part of your empire. Maybe. His eyes were burning. But it's the only way I know how to be. Then maybe I can't be part of this. The words came out before she could stop them. Maybe I can't watch you become this monster and pretend it's okay because it's for me. I didn't ask for this. Zara didn't ask for this. We were safe being invisible. Now we're targets. Something shattered in his expression. Then leave, he said quietly. If that's what you need. If you and Zara need to be safe more than you need me, then go. I won't stop you. I can't ask you to stay in a world that's destroying you. She grabbed a bag, packed essential things with shaking hands, left the penthouse while he stood on the balcony and watched Seoul burn with his war. His daughter in bed behind a closed door, unaware her mother was leaving. But she didn't get far. 3 blocks from the apartment building, her phone rang. Unknown number. A man's voice, older, calm. Miss Dlamini. My name is Jin-hwan Park. I believe we should talk. Her blood froze. She met him in an underground parking garage on the southern edge of Gangnam. Just him and one guard. He was in his 50s with scars on his face from old battles and scars in his eyes from older betrayals. Do you know why you're here? Jin-hwan asked without preamble. You're going to threaten me. Use me as leverage. He smiled, not predatory, almost approving. Smart. The Seoul boss chose well. He leaned against his car. But I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to offer you freedom. Freedom from what? From him. From this war. From everything he's dragged you into. From turning your daughter into a pawn in his game. Jin-hwan pulled out a cigarette, lit it, exhaled slowly. I can give you a new identity. Money. Safe passage to any country you choose. You and your daughter can disappear. Start over. Live. Never look back. Never wonder if today is the day he gets killed and you become collateral. And what do you want in exchange? Information. Current holdings. Security rotations. Vulnerability points. He shrugged. Nothing you don't already know from living in his penthouse. He'll come after me. No, Jin-hwan said. He'll assume you chose freedom. And then I'll take what he's built while his attention is elsewhere trying to find you. Lindao stood in that parking garage and she understood the entire trap. Marcus had been bait. Her trauma had been strategic. Everything, the abuse, the discovery, the connection with Kang Min-seok, had been designed by Jin-hwan to create exactly this moment. She was the key to destroying him. She had 2 choices, betray him and save herself and Zara, or go back and watch the empire burn around them. She did something else. She got back in the car that had brought her to the parking garage, drove straight back to the penthouse, and walked into the war room where Kang Min-seok was meeting with his remaining lieutenants. Every man in the room turned to stare at her. Marcus didn't find me by accident, she said without preamble. Jin-hwan sent him. The abuse, the coincidence of him showing up in Seoul, it was all orchestrated. I was bait from the beginning, and he just offered me a way out. Money, new identity, safe passage for me and Zara. All I had to do was betray you. The silence that followed was deafening. Kang Min-seok's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. How do you know this? Because Jin-hwan just told me. He offered me freedom in exchange for betraying you. She met his gaze. I came back to tell you instead. I came back because I'm not abandoning you. Because Zara's waiting upstairs. Because you're right, we're not invisible anymore. We're part of your world now. And if I'm going to be part of it, I'm going to be all in. One of the lieutenants, Jaewon, laughed. And we're supposed to believe that? She's probably wearing a wire. This is exactly what Jin Hwan would. Enough. Kang Min-seok's voice cut through the room like a blade. He crossed to Lindao, stood in front of her, studied her face. You could have left. You could have taken his offer. Zara could be safe right now. Yes. Why didn't you? She reached up and touched his face. The first time she'd initiated contact in front of his men. Because I'm tired of running. Because I'm tired of being a pawn in other people's games. And because, her voice cracked. Because I love you. Even though it terrifies me. Even though I know it might destroy me. I love you. The room went absolutely silent. Kang Min-seok pulled her against him and held her while his men watched. And then he turned to Jaewon with an expression that made the lieutenant go pale. You laughed, he said quietly. When she walked in trying to help us, you laughed. Why? Jaewon's face flickered. I was just being cautious. You were being hostile. To the woman I love. To the mother of. He stopped, correcting himself. To the woman and child I'm going to protect with everything I have. Which makes me wonder what else you've been hostile about. What other conversations you've been having. What other loyalties you've been cultivating. It took less than 6 hours to confirm what Lindao's arrival had inadvertently exposed. Jaewon had been coordinating with Jin Hwan for weeks. The coup was already in motion. Half of Kang Min-seok's lieutenants were compromised. The cleansing was brutal and efficient. Jaewon was arrested by police officers on Kang Min-seok's payroll. 2 other traitors were visited by men with specific skill sets. By dawn, the coup had crumbled. But so had Kang Min-seok's organization. The fracture was severe. Men who'd been loyal for years were now afraid. Territories were destabilized. And Jin Hwan, sensing the chaos, prepared for a final assault. You've come this far. You've watched Lindao go from invisible to essential. You've seen her choose to stay when leaving would have saved her. You've seen a mother make a choice for love. Now comes the part where everything changes. The final battle. The moment where she either saves him or loses him. If her story matters to you. If invisible people becoming visible matters to you. If mothers choosing love matters to you, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to feel seen. Because the ending is coming. And you don't want to miss it. The assault came on a Friday night. Jin Hwan brought everything: men, firepower, tactical advantage cultivated over weeks of preparation. The first strike hit Kang Min-seok's warehouse district. Explosions lit up the Seoul skyline. Fire reflected off the Han River like the city was bleeding. By dawn, the organization was in ruins. 4 distribution centers gone. 7 men dead. Dozens injured or defected. What had taken 15 years to build was collapsing in hours. Kang Min-seok sat at the kitchen table in the penthouse, staring at a map of Seoul. His city, his territory, his empire in ashes. Lindao stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, watching him process defeat. In the other room, Zara slept fitfully, waking with nightmares. I'm going to lose, he said finally. Yes, she agreed. If you keep fighting like this, you're going to lose. He looked up at her. Then what do you suggest? Negotiate. In my world, negotiation from weakness is surrender. In my world, Lindao said slowly, negotiation from weakness is just negotiation with better terms for the other side. You don't have to win, Minj. You just have to survive. So Zara has a father. So I have a husband. She watched him process this. Watched the crime boss war with the man who'd held her through the night. If I negotiate now, he said, Jin Hwan will want everything. Territory. Resources. Guarantees. Then give him something he wants more than all of that. Lindao sat down across from him. Give him legitimacy. Give him a peace that makes him look strong without having to destroy you completely. Give him a reason to stop fighting. What reason could possibly be enough? Lindao took a breath. Me. They met at a neutral restaurant, one that neither organization owned. Just Kang Min-seok and Jin Hwan. 2 predators who'd spent weeks trying to destroy each other. Now sitting across a table like businessmen. You want to negotiate, Jin Hwan said, lighting a cigarette. After everything. I want to survive, Kang Min-seok replied. I've spent 15 years building what you're tearing down. I can rebuild. Or I can spend the rest of my life trying to destroy you in return. Neither option appeals to me. Neither option is good for the woman waiting at home or her daughter. So what do you propose? Territory division. Permanent. You take the southern districts, Busan, everything below the Han River. I keep Seoul proper in the north. We establish a demarcation line. We stop bleeding each other. We make peace. Jin Hwan considered this. And what guarantees do I have that you'll honor this arrangement? The woman you tried to use against me, Kang Min-seok said quietly. Lin-dao. I'm going to marry her. She'll be my wife, publicly, officially, permanently. If I violate our agreement, I'm not just risking my organization. I'm risking her. And her daughter. And you've seen how far I'll go to protect them. Jin Hwan's eyebrows rose. You're offering yourself a hostage to your own word. I'm offering you something more valuable than territory. Certainty. You'll know that any move I make against you puts her at risk. And I won't make that move. Ever. Because losing her would destroy me more thoroughly than any war you could wage. There was a long silence. Then Jin Hwan smiled, genuine, almost impressed. You know what I respect about you, Seoul boss? Most men in your position would lie. Would make promises they have no intention of keeping. But you're offering to chain yourself to peace through the woman you love. Through the child you're going to father. He stubbed out his cigarette. That's either incredibly stupid or incredibly wise. I haven't decided which. Does it matter? No, Jin Hwan admitted. I accept your terms. Let there be peace between us. And congratulations on your engagement. Your wife is a smart woman. Take care of her. They shook hands. The war ended. Not with victory but with survival. That night, Kang Min-seok found Lin-dao on the penthouse balcony, watching Seoul glitter below them. Zara was asleep, finally asleep without nightmares, in her room. He accepted, Kang Min-seok said. I know. I was listening. He stood beside her, close but not touching. You understand what this means. I used you as a bargaining chip. I made you part of a negotiation without asking. I made your daughter part of my survival strategy. You told him you were going to marry me. Lin-dao turned to face him. Was that true? Or just strategy? Both. His voice was raw. I want to marry you, Lin-dao. I've wanted it since the night you held my hand in the kitchen. But I should have asked. I should have given you a choice instead of making you part of my survival strategy. I should have asked your permission to make Zara part of my future. She was quiet for a long moment. The city breathed below them. Millions of lives continuing, unaware of the war that had just ended. Ask me now, she said finally. What? Ask me. Properly. Give me the choice you should have given me before. In front of Zara. Make it real. He took both her hands in his. And this man, this crime boss, this predator, this person who had ordered deaths and burned buildings and made enemies disappear, looked at her with something that was purely terrifyingly human. Lin-dao Dlamini, he said. Will you marry me? Not for strategy. Not for survival. But because I love you, and I can't imagine surviving anything without you beside me. And because I want to be Zara's father. I want to help raise the most brilliant child I've ever met. I want to wake up every day and earn the right to call you my wife. She looked at him, really looked. At the man who'd noticed her when she was invisible. At the monster who'd killed for her without asking. At the human being who'd held her hand through the darkness and let her see his grief. At the father who would love her daughter like she was his own. Yes, she said. God help me, yes. I'll marry you. I'll be your wife. And Zara, her voice cracked. You have to ask her too. You have to make her understand that you're choosing us. Both of us. I will, he promised. Every single day I'll choose you both. I'll spend the rest of my life earning that right. He pulled her into his arms and held her while Seoul glittered below them. And for the first time since the bandage had appeared on her face, both of them felt something that resembled peace. The penthouse was no longer a tomb. Sunlight streamed through windows that used to frame emptiness. Flowers bloomed on every surface, not expensive arrangements, but the kind Lin-dao still insisted on buying herself from the corner market, Because some rituals mattered more than money. Children's artwork hung on the refrigerator. Toys occupied corners of the pristine living room. A photo of Zara receiving her UCLA acceptance letter sat in a silver frame on the mantel. Lindao's cleaning business had expanded to 15 employees. All paid fair wages with full benefits. Other companies had started copying her model. She'd been interviewed by business magazines about ethical employment practices. She'd spoken at conferences about immigrant entrepreneurship and single mother resilience. She'd built something that mattered. Kang Min-seok leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching her arrange flowers. He wore no weapons now. His tailored suit was the armor of a legitimate businessman, not a crime boss. He still owned restaurants and real estate, but he'd stepped back from the criminal side. The organization ran without him. His tattoos included new additions. Lindao and flowing script across his heart, Korean characters for beloved, entwined with the letters of her name. Zara on his wrist. The Korean characters for family, on his shoulder blade. A small tattoo of a bandage on his forearm. A permanent reminder of the moment he noticed her. He'd stepped back from the violence of his past almost entirely. Legitimate businesses only. The restaurants thrived. The real estate portfolio grew through legal channels. The nightmares still came sometimes. The face of his dead daughter, the echo of violence. But he'd learned to bear them with Lindao beside him, holding his hand. "You're staring," Lindao said, not turning from the flowers. "Can't help it. You're beautiful when you're concentrating." She turned and smiled. She was wearing his shirt from yesterday, comfortable in a space that had once intimidated her. This was home now, really home. The place where she'd gone from invisible to essential. "Zara called," she said. "She got the internship at the veterinary clinic." "Of course she did." He crossed to her, pulled her close. "She's brilliant. Like her mother." A knock interrupted them. Voices filled the apartment. His former lieutenants, now more like uncles to Zara. Her grandmother visiting from Louisiana with enough soul food to feed an army. Zara herself, 12 years old now and confident in ways Lindao had never been at that age. The child of a single mother who'd become visible, who'd learned that she mattered. The penthouse filled with Korean and English, with laughter and music and the beautiful collision of worlds that had somehow become one family. That night, after everyone left, Lindao found him on the balcony. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Regrets?" she asked. "Never." He turned to face her. "You. Only one." She smiled. "That you didn't notice the bandage sooner. We could have had 5 more years." He kissed her softly. "We have the rest of our lives. I plan to make every day count." They stood together, watching Seoul breathe below them. The city that had almost destroyed them. The city that had brought them together. The city that was home. "I love you," Lindao said. "I love you," he replied. "My strong, beautiful, impossible wife. Your stubborn flower-arranging wife who still reorganizes your books by color. Wouldn't have it any other way." She rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. The heart that had been as empty as this penthouse before she walked into it. Before she decided to be visible instead of invisible. The bandage was gone now. The scar barely visible. But what it had started, that was permanent. That was forever. She'd gone from invisible to unforgettable. And that, in the end, was the greatest transformation of all. You just spent 50 minutes with Lindao. You watched her go from working 4 jobs to survive to thriving. From invisible to unforgettable. From a single mom with bruises to a woman who built an empire. Not through violence, but through showing people that they deserve fair wages and respect. She's not invisible to you anymore. Don't make her invisible again. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because this isn't just a story. It's a reminder that everyone deserves to be seen. Every single mom. Every person fighting to be visible. And if you know someone who's felt invisible, who's worked multiple jobs to survive, who's sacrificed their own meals for their child, share this with them. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know their sacrifice matters. Until next time. Until we see each other again.